Hello, my name is Mishan Modley. I'm a fifth year medical student, and today I will be presenting this video on how to conduct a hand examination, paying special attention to the nerves and tendons of the hand. Let us revise the relevant anatomy of the hand and wrist. The hand is innervated by three main nerves, the radial, median, and ulnar nerves. There is both a sensory and motor component to each nerve. With regards to sensation, the radial nerve innervates the thumb interwebbing and dorsal 3½ fingers. The median nerve covers the palmar side of the thumb, index, middle, and half of the ring fingers, particularly the tips of these fingers, which is very important for our sensory ability. The ulnar nerve innervates the dorsal and palmar aspects of the little finger and other half of the ring finger. From the wrist, you have extension through extensor carpi radialis longus and brevis, as well as extensor carpi ulnaris, flexion through flexor carpi radialis and flexor carpi ulnaris. Moving up to the metacarpophalangeal joints and knuckles, extension of the forefingers is done through extensor digitorum communis, which are the four big prominent tendons at the back of your hand. There's an extra two extensors to the index and pinky, extensor indicis and extensor digiti minimi, respectively. Extension of thumb is through extensor pollicis longus and brevis, abduction through abductor pollicis longus. Flexion of the thumb is via flexor pollicis longus. Flexion of the other four fingers is through two tendons on each finger. Flexor digitorum superficialis, which inserts on the middle phalanx, and flexor digitorum profundus, which inserts on the distal phalanx. Intrinsic muscles of the hands include the thenar, hypothenar, lumbricals, and indorsii. Now that we've revised the relevant anatomy, let us move on to the exam, which is done through inspection, palpation, and movement. Firstly, inspect the dorsal and palmar aspects of the patient's hands from the wrist downwards, noticing any scarring, erythema, swelling, or nail changes. Also note any postural abnormalities with the hand, which may indicate deformities, injuries, or nerve palsies, such as Boutonniere's deformity, mallet finger, or wrist, finger, and thumb drop. Then, palpate the palmar and dorsal aspects of the patient's hands, noting any swelling, temperature, stiffness, tenderness, or muscle wasting, especially on the thenar and hypothenar eminences. Be systematic and palpate from the wrist down over the tendons and joints, noting findings like Dupuytren's contracture. On to movement, ask the patient to flex, extend, ulnar, and radially deviate the wrist. Then make a fist, extend, adduct, and abduct the fingers. Then get the patient to move their thumb, showing flexion, extension, abduction, adduction, and opposition. Note any limitation in movement. If found, assess further via passive movement. Next, assess the individual joints of each finger in isolation by binding the other fingers and joints. Start with the metacarpophalangeal joint, then flexion at the proximal interphalangeal joint, facilitated by flexor digitorum superficialis, and flexion at the distal interphalangeal joint, facilitated by flexor digitorum profundus. Then, assess the interphalangeal joint of the thumb by restraining the base and observing flexion facilitated by flexor pollicis longus. Finally, assess sensation of each nerve. Radial nerve assessed by pricking thumb interwebbing, median nerve by pricking index fingertips, and ulnar by pricking pinky fingertips, and asking if the patient felt the sensations and if it felt normal to them. In conclusion, it is important to be mindful of the clinical anatomy of the hand as well as the condition of the patient, as well as being systematic when conducting the hand exam.